Mystery schools were great mystic institutions revealed to a select few throughout civilization for connecting humans to their higher consciousness. The ancient Egyptian mystery schools were idolized by the Greeks, and the Greek mysteries were worshipped by the Romans. You're invited to bring those mysteries into the modern day. Welcome to Mystery School.
Mystery School is a how-to series for the consciousness curious. I'm Jess, and I am the executive producer of the Telepathy Tapes film, so I've got an inside track on what the audience wants more of. And when the Psychic Medium episode dropped in season 2, y'all wanted more. So I've invited world-renowned intuitive and psychic medium Tara Taylor to school us on what the phenomenon is and how we can maybe do it at home. So this is for entertainment purposes only. Say what you will. Girls just want to have fun. Let's go say hi to Tara. So I don't want to give too much away, but you and I have been friends for quite some time, Tara.
I was thinking about it the other day and I thought, my God, we go back like 2018, 2019.
Yes.
Like,
Wait,
oh, geez.
what year are we in now? 26.
Yeah.
We go back further than that.
We might have. Yeah. I was like, this is like pre-COVID, like it's interesting through our mutual friend a long, long time ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who texted me yesterday, but that's neither here nor there.
I love that. Well, of course. Of course she did, right?
Psychic.
You might be intuitive, right? Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit yesterday about the psychic medium of it all, and you were saying it's an intuitive. So I just want to clear up. What are the differences between the two?
I love that. Great question. And here's the thing, like I've been spending the last 27 years. You know me so well. But to go in for your listener, your viewers, everybody is kind of going to jump on. A lot of people who are working intuitives and sometimes known as psychic mediums actually don't like being called that because we are very professional in what we do and we've done everything we can to move away from the stigma of it. So I think it's interesting that so many people view it as sometimes, psychic as someone who can predict the future, but we're all psychic. The reality is that we all have seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing. So that's the layman's terms of what we say is clairvoyant, clairaudio, clairsentience, claircognizance. So that's kind of the fancy C's, but we all have the ability to be psychic or have had experiences. Now, the difference between that and a medium, so a medium is someone who talks to people that are deceased or that are masters or angels or anything that is not of this world and receives their information in that way. So sometimes you have a psychic that's not a medium. Sometimes you have a psychic that's a psychic medium. Sometimes you have so it gets confusing, and I can see why so many people go, what does that mean? So to clarify, a lot of us that kind of are all of the above prefer to be called intuitives because we do multiple of things on this realm to help people connect, be it through mediumship, be it through our own psychic abilities. See, everyone is born psychic. Everybody has had experiences, a deja vu, or it's like, I knew that was going to happen. You think of a friend and then that friend calls you, it's like something is, and that's what is considered psychic. Either we feel it, we see it, we hear it, we dream it, all those things. But what's fascinating too is the mediumship part is, does everybody talk to their papas that are crossed over till the age of 7, like my experience? Not necessarily, but all children do under the age of 7. And around the age of 7 is where our egos form. That's when we start questioning it. That's when we start wondering, is it real? Is it not real? And society starts telling us what to think about those things or what that means, right? So that's kind of where we either shut down that part of ourselves or, in my instance, it amplified. And that's kind of what my book series was a long time ago. Yeah.
I appreciate the clarification of that because, me just being some like neurotypical person who does have a bit of psychic in me.
Of course you do. Everybody does.
Right. So we've talked about this. As you said, everybody does. So everyone watching does. So I appreciate that. Now I will forever and always call you intuitive. But I do also want to just double down and clarify that you are a psychic medium who does speak to people beyond.
Yes. Yeah. So in a way, it's just because I feel like we don't want to just kind of stop there. And I think it's much, when I say much more, it doesn't mean that that's not enough, but to really go into what that all means, I've dedicated my whole life to going, well, why was I having those experiences? I always say my bubble got burst around the age of 7 because I was around the time that my papa had passed away. And when I would go and say something to my parents and saying, oh, Papa came and visited me last night. Like, oh, she's having a dream. Like, again, we all have loved ones that crosses. They'll come visit us in a dream, usually within the first couple days or within that first month. So everybody's had those experiences. That's still a form of mediumship. And mediumship can be taught. So that is something I will say is that some of us are more aware, but mediumship definitely can be taught. Anyhow, let me back up. So what's fascinating about kind of in the way that I was led into is that I don't know anything different. So it wasn't that I had a near-death experience. I was born like that. So when I was little, I remember figures coming and disappearing in the middle of my room, my papa come, but not really knowing what death was. And it wasn't until, like I said, around the age of 7 that happened, where it was kind of that experience where I would say to my parents, well, Papa came. And I'm like, no, but he was sitting on the end of my bed. He was telling me everything was okay, even though I didn't understand. And then as the days went, I see him in a casket, and I couldn't quite understand the difference of what that was. So, but what was interesting was when I must have said something to my father where how I would have known. So as the days went, said, Papa came to see me. I don't even remember what I said. I said something. My dad's eyes welled up with water, and I never seen my father cry. Turned around, walked, and went into the bedroom and shut the door. So in that moment, as a child, you'll say to yourself, that feels like I've done something wrong. That's not what my dad's intention was, but he was so overwhelmed by the information that I knew that he had to remove himself, right? Because it can be a little uncomfortable, frightening. He's just lost his dad. His daughter is saying things that it's a lot. So as a family, we would navigate through all of this as the years goes. And this was like in the early 80s. So I've dedicated myself because of that beginning and being in church and raising my hand and me saying, well, that's not what the angels say. And they'd be like, shut her up, get her out, So I've had these experiences my whole life where, yes, I've had a friend pass away, and a week later, I look at my rearview mirror and she's sitting in the back of my seat. And like, this is the sort of stuff. And when people spend time with me, they have, like yourself and anybody that's been around me, they have these experiences too. And it's like, so I keep saying, see, it's so much more real than what we realize, right? But the thing is, I dedicate myself now to normalizing it and working with doctors and psychologists too, and people all over the world, and what the difference is between, intuitive experience, a psychic experience, medium experience, and something that is a mental illness. Right. So there is something where it's very important to know the difference of what that means, because it can be a fine line of what that means. So it is something that needs to be studied, because there's a lot of misdiagnosing of people that are having intuitive experiences, and also people that misdiagnosing that actually are having mental illnesses. So this is something I really feel, of course, like I said, for 27 years, really getting the stigma away from psychic, medium, but there is such a basis of who we are. We're intuitive beings having human experiences. And some of us may feel things, some of us may see things, may hear things, may dream things, may know things. It's all the same. It's just how we understand it, and then how to know. I would say there's 2 voices. The minute you have a third, we've got a problem. Okay?
Who would that third voice be?
Exactly. Okay. So that's what I mean. It's like we have higher self, we have our ego. Sometimes, of course, we have loved ones talk to us, but we have something telling us to do something bad, or that's when we go, oh, there's something else going on, a psychosis, a schizophrenia, that's where we dig really deep. And when I work with families with young children, that's where a lot of them will come to me and say, is my child having these experiences, or what's going on? So the doctors will say, well, we're not sure. So what's so nice is we are seeing that world opening up a lot more to realize what's actually happening. And we're not kind of numbing it out as much anymore. There's still a stigma, in certain religions and stuff will say, this is bad, this is devil's work. And I'm also a person that kind of will challenge that, because my background is theology and pastoral counseling. So it's really something that I'm trying to change the view on that as well, that we are all connected and that we don't have to speak through somebody else to speak to God.
This is something that comes up a lot, is religion as it relates to, I guess we'll call it the metaphysical or intuition. Are you in a particular religion?
Good question.
So I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
And I was probably 13 when I decided that probably was not for me. And I went much more into a spiritual and non-denominational place. But like you, super into theology and wanted to know about all religion, didn't understand or enjoy or feel comfortable with the construct of it all, but knew that there was something else out there that was energy as it related to whatever God is, whatever our dimension is. So are you of a religion?
Technically not. However, I was raised and I was baptized and confirmed in Anglican. So that would be, some people know as a United or as Protestant. Henry VIII decided to divorce his wife, so it created a whole new religion. Right? That's kind of basically what it was. But it's interesting because of that. I would say when people say, well, what are you? I say, well, I'm a Christian. To be a Christian, to believe in Christ, or Christ was the Messiah. Okay. That's basically, if I was going to do, the most layman's terms of what that means, is like, but guess what? He was also Jewish. Okay. So that means, therefore, right? And also a branch off of that is Muslim. Okay. Or Islam, right? So it can go on. So that's the belief in one God. But if we were going to jump over to the philosophy of things, I was going to talk about Buddhism. Then we have Hinduism, Jainism. Like, again, it all comes from somewhere. So I say, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Muslim, I'm Christian, I'm all this, because they are all connected. And I think that's where people they get frightened. But the knowledge is so important, is that it's so important that we go in and we start reading the stuff for yourself. If you've never read the Quran, please go read it. If you've never read, let's say the Kabbalah, please go read it. If you've never read, it's so important to understand the knowledge. The Bible itself is amazing, but there's so many scrolls and there's so many that have been moved and put back in. And, here's a fun little story is I think it was Pope Gregory the First who decided that Mary Magdalene, because there's only Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene in the, women at the time that were in the Bible. And then there was the other woman who was the prostitute. Well, it couldn't be Mother Mary. So therefore he decided he was going to say that Mary Magdalene was then the prostitute. That's actually not true. That was never so what's fascinating is that Pope John Paul, I think it was there was one time in 1969 and others, and this is the stuff I've studied just because the fascination for me, also because of why I always felt that it was wrong, what I was experiencing wasn't wrong, but so they publicly apologized for it and said, actually, it wasn't true. She was never the prostitute. She was never this. And not that the story is a big or small, but it's just to get people to realize that just everything you read doesn't mean it's true or gospel, right? Yeah. And I think it's important for all of us to do our own research. I've done my own research intuitively about my experience and what that means, but also leaning into all religions and seeing how that applies in that, even though I was brought up Protestant, to be more aware of the knowledge. It's kind of, let's talk over the fence, not rip it down. But I know my experiences are real and I've had them my whole life. And then other people I meet are having them. So I think the reality is it's happening, people. But what are we going to do about it? It's always been happening. So
I feel like right now, we've talked about this, with the telepathy tapes, it did something that kind of opened up people to be just a little bit more open about what's possible around this. Yeah. And I know that religion plays such a big part in people being afraid if it is happening, that no one will even look at that or believe it. And I believe that this new wave, we always ask, why is there so much autism in the world right now? What was it here before? Is it just a new thing? And this is, again, just my belief, nobody else's, that I believe that these children are being born into this world to start to evolve us into the next place of communication, not mind-to-mind communication, maybe it is mind-to-mind communication, but that we are definitely at some kind of paradigm shift going over into another place where we will all be, I think, operating and communicating as humans in extrasensory communication.
Yeah. And it's naturally happening. And we are having a sensory overload right now with everybody between the technology that we're on around with our phones. So before we had all this technology, we were actually more in tune with our intuition. And then we just kind of overloaded everything we possibly can. So that's why we don't trust as much. People would talk about, you would think of your Uncle Joe and he then, 2 days later, he's coming up the laneway in his buggy with his horses. I mean, this was something people talked about. And we go way and way, way back with all this sort of thing. So it is something to be said. We are all Einstein talked about intuition all the time. So I think it's I'd like to say intuition is our broad stroke. And then we have the psychic means. And these are just terms that we give because as humans, we have this thing that we have to identify everything. I would say I'm just Tara at the end of the day. I have these experiences. You will have these experiences. You may feel it. I may see it. I may be clairvoyant. You may be clairsentience, but it's all the same thing. It's just however we're perceiving the messages that are coming through, right? And then the next level is the mediumship that people want to, obviously fascinated because so much grief where life is, we come into this life naked, we go home naked, right? We will die. That's part of our process. So we do have a fascination. We celebrate life, but we don't quite celebrate death. Well, in North America, we have this very interesting view on what death is and that experience. It's kind of like we put it in a corner and we lock it away and, ooh, it's dark. But there's something, I guess, even societally, we're changing. It's there is something about the souls going on. Religions speak about it. Philosophies talk about it. Then physically we can talk about it. But there is a fascination. And I think, again, we could go in 20 different directions today with what we're going to talk about. But it's really, I say to people, do your homework because you are this incredible being and you have so much intuitive power in you. And to really understand and embrace that, it will change your life. It will bring things easier. You will be happier. You'll feel like life has more of a flow and you just live more in peace. And you just become a better citizen in this world, truly, because you understand it of just how nature works and how we work with it. It's something just to be in awe of, really.
Yeah.
And the deeper we understand that about ourselves, just the happier we are here. The truth of it.
Have you, like, at what time frame, you're mentioning Einstein talking about intuition, but like at what year time period did we start to move away from this, when did the
Opening?
overlook in?
Well, there's a couple little timelines. I would say the first one that comes to mind is around the time that Constantine decided that Christianity was going to be the religion, where Christians weren't being martyred anymore. Certain religions were kind of, he had the dream and then decided, because before that we had, they would say paganism, or again, they believed it was a different multiple gods, not necessarily one god. But you would have oracles. There's my little bunny ears. Okay. Oracles where literally we go back like Greece. We go back to Socrates. We go back there. It's like they would have an oracle and you would go deep down into the depths of what they used to say, like close to Hades. And there would be this woman there and you would go down and you would talk to her and she would channel things and channel ghosts or whatever. I wouldn't say ghosts, but back then, like they would channel the higher beings. They would channel the different gods. And messages would come through. This was normal. This is what people do. You went to oracles. Kings and queens would have oracles that would be astronomers, astrologists. Like this was the way it was. Then we talk about the Dark Ages. And that's kind of when things got a little, seen as bad. Yeah, darker. And the fear of it started to happen versus the embracing of it, because that was seen as hedonists or the devil's work. So again, we watch through the centuries, and this is just like, again, I'm just skimming the surface here, but I would say the one that comes to mind the most was around that time that I think it really started to do that. Because the interesting thing too, and about Mary Magdalene is she was the first to see Jesus risen. And like I said, and to literally say what John said, he's like, don't touch the body. There's been different ways, because he said, don't touch me. They think, well, did his body rise, or it meant don't touch me because I'm actually not in body, like I'm like spirit. So there's been a lot of debate. That's what theology is just debating it all, right? To be a theologian. So it's fascinating where it's like, did the Bible just say Mary Magdalene had a full mediumship experience, right? And again, so it's just fascinating just to see what has happened over history. And the reality, and as we all know, is if we can't control people, right, then people lose power. So if there's a way to make people believe that they cannot connect or that they are not, in tune, then they can be controlled, right?
Yeah.
So we have a society of that. We have a problem in our world with that, is the need to control other people, right? For power. But if people knew the power they wielded, they could not be controlled.
That's why I really do love, I am a big component of power to the people, because like we have the power. I think moment in time we're recognizing and realizing that, and that's where this paradigm shift is coming from, because I think that the power structures are just crumbling around us and we are unable to, like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And there's a lot of just
unraveling.
Gnarly unraveling.
Yeah.
So I think that those of us who have a belief in something that may be a little different or beyond, I think like our time is now. Your time has always been. In your lifetime as Tara, like, have you channeled a Mary Magdalene or anyone of that nature?
And I've done a lot of cool things, I have to admit. I've had a lot of experiences throwing myself into it because I'm the first person to try to debunk it. Like, I really want to see what's real and what isn't, because I want to make sure that this is a real experience, or if it's not, let's figure it out one way or another, right? Like, have I channeled it? Well, I've done, I do it every day. So before I do any of my sessions or work with people on their intuition or work on my cold cases or missing person cases, as you know, I do a lot of things with intuition and how I help people and the way that I'm normalizing it, because everything is quite intuitive in what we do every day. But I do call that stuff in. So I do prayers or affirmations that before I go into my day, I will call that in a safe place to help guide me through the day and allow myself to be the conduit, to be of service, to do good. So that's part of it. As I think that there's ritualistics in it, in the way that I do that, maybe call it the old basics of that. But yes, of course, I call in Jesus, I call in Mother Mary, I call in Mary Magdalene, I call in the highest of angels. It's an interesting thing, but for me, it's also protection as well on top of that. So, and I, even in a lot of the stuff that I did in my books, and I talk about, and I have little disclaimers that say, I'm not a fan of Ouija boards. I think it opens up people to things that aren't good. And with a lot of parents that I've worked with over the years that have had young teens that have had, we'll say, going through problems or going through drug addictions or going through certain psychosis, I go all the way back. I'm like, was there any point that a Ouija board was used? Every single time. Every single time there's been some sort of, she was at a birthday party. We had one. I was like, crack those things, get rid of them. They are bad news. I'm like, you are
Yeah.
the oracle. We are the oracle. The tools are great for them, but when they are not used appropriately, can be very dangerous. Now, think about that. It's the same as a surgeon. Okay. Let's say you have somebody that's just started 1 year and like to become a foot surgeon, Am I going to go to that guy or am I going to go to the guy that's been doing it for 20 years? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's the difference. Like, realize you need to be trained and you need to understand how to work with it. But the minute you start just blindly using these vocations or tools, they can be dangerous if they are not used appropriately or in the right way.
Like that like scares me like
Yeah.
immediately to talk about because I don't want to be doing
Though.
wrong if I feel like something's coming through or if I noticed something, coincidental, which there are no coincidences. And so if we could, because I want everyone to be safe who's curious about this, and I don't want I really do want the highest good for everyone listening and for all of us and the both of us and everyone we love. What are some ways that a person at home could start to explore, like if they're just curious but want to keep safe, but want to explore, what are we doing?
First, as simple as your breath. We come into this life with our first breath, we leave with our last. That's our soul coming in and out. That's the reside. So strangely, if we think of like if a person has been around a body and there's no life in it or whatever, there's something you can tell in the eyes and all of that, right? So there's something, but we know when something has a life force and we know when it doesn't. So our soul is that. So it aligns us. That's where our intuition is, right? So when we get kind of stressed out, you'll notice like people will go heavy breathing. They get anxious. They start to, I can't feel like I can't breathe. See, that's what's happening. It's kind of that human part of us takes over, right? And that's kind of like when I was talking about religion, like we put too much humanity in religion. Religion's supposed to be something, and spirituality is supposed to be something that's meant to be explored and for everybody, not kind of doctrine and pushed for just one type of people. So again, that's the same thing. It's like we humanize it too much. But when we actually release it as something much bigger, we can literally just do breathing exercises and the answers will come. The intuition will feel like it starts to wash over us. But when we're holding our breath and we're not kind of in our nice flow, we kind of do get those blocks. And there's the truth of that. I'm sure anybody listening right now, it's like when you're exercising, when you're doing something, like things just come to you, right? It's because you're forced to breathe. When we're laughing hysterically and we're having a good time, it's like all of a sudden ideas pop in, or it's like, that's our intuition. It's our natural state. We're actually naturally in our happy zone of letting informations come in. I always say to people, we get a minimum of 500 messages a day. Minimum, be it number sequences, be it, an animal that we keep seeing. If it's a loved one, feathers, coins, I can go butterflies, dragonflies, hummingbirds. We are part of nature really in that way too. But the fascinating about all of this, like the simplest thing we can do is breathe. The second one is, people can do my courses. I'm all about that. And they're going to be free on the telepathy tapes because I want everybody to feel empowered with their intuition. That's why I was put on this earth, right? So, but I'm trying to think like something really quick would be before you go to bed tonight, say out loud. You could say it to your angels and it's a safe place. They say, dear divine team. I call them our spiritual entourage or divine team. So it's the loved ones that look after us all the time. We're never really alone and not in a creepy way, but we always have loved ones or, angels that look after us and they hang around making sure that we're, staying on track or helping us with our purpose. So you ask them, say, dear divine team, show me, and you could say, 3 things. Now it would be like, show me 3 red balloons. Okay. That you're around me. Okay. And then say in the next 24 hours, thank you, bless you, and then say your full name. Write it out. You can say it out. But when you say it in your head, it doesn't quite work because we have free will. So what happens is anything that is within, like in this sort of way, we have to ask that old saying, ask and you shall receive. So we have to put it into this world, if you want to think of it as a invoke it, to manifest it. So you're asking it out so that you receive that information. So I would say foolproof way, the quickest way is to say it or to write it. So when you do that, the next day, literally, you'll wake up, you'll go with your day, you'll kind of maybe remember, kind of forget you'll put on the TV, there's a red balloon. You'll be like, oh, whatever. Okay, weird, right? And then somebody says, oh, I was walking, I saw this red balloon. You're like, that's odd. You could be like going somewhere, you physically see red balloons. So you could see it, hear it, knowing, like, open a magazine. I try to tell people, like, if you're in California, don't say palm trees. I mean, that's not going to work. Right? It's got to be something that would not be in that area. And you can do that with a loved one too. So I ask people for, to build on their mediumship. So if there's someone that's crossed that you really want to connect with and you're not feeling that and you're asking them to come in your dreams, I'm like, use the show me 3 things rule, which is you say it out. It's like, dear so-and-so and divine team, please show me these 3 things. And it's got to be one thing. So let's say an armadillo. I was like, that's always like a foolproof one. Okay. In the next 24 hours to let me know that you're here or you're around or that you're everything's okay, whatever that is. You will see it, hear it, experience it. It is wild and it works. I'm like, I can't wait for people to kind of chime in about it because it happens. It works every time. Yeah.
I do want people to chime in about it because
Yeah, they will. It works.
I'm going to be doing
But
it
keep it
tonight as
simple.
well.
Yeah, keep it simple. So don't do a yes, no. It has to be like one thing, like an armadillo, a blue jay, like something that is enough that would not be, close to the area because like you're not going to say a house or a palm tree or I'm in Canada, snow. I mean, you're just not going to do that, right? It's got to be something that's foreign to the area. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I love this. And then I guess people would, if they're finding that that's strengthening something in them, just to continue and then to explore maybe online or to, what's your website so people can see what your classes are?
TaraTaylor.ca. TaraTaylor.ca. Yeah.
So if you're curious out there and you are seeing this armadillo, you can, armadillo? I don't even know how to say the word armadillo.
Armadillo? Yeah.
Armadillo.
It's like project, depending if I'm Canadian or American today. Yeah.
I'm from New York, and you know the word drawer? D-R-A.
Drawer? Not gonna do it.
Not. It was only maybe 2 years ago that I said, I need to get it from the drawer. And somebody was like, what? Drawer. And they were like, you mean the drawer? And I was like, what?
I love it. I love it. And it sneaks out like once in a while. Our little bag, being born and raised in Canada too, it's kind of like little ways my A's will stretch and I don't even notice. And somebody's like, oh, there it is right there. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah.
So while I have you and before you go, we're talking about Canada a little bit, and forgive me if I'm putting you on the spot, but can we talk about Catherine O'Hara, who just passed, who is from Canada?
I know.
I mean, what's happening?
We all cried. Yeah, we all cried. I think it was a mourning day in Canada. I mean, what a special soul. Talk about intuition. I mean, that's what she was doing her whole life. And literally allowing herself as an actress, as a creator, to allow herself to be a vessel. And for what she did and, Schitt's Creek, I mean, we can go way back, but even all those characters, like that is something, I mean, impressive talent, right? And I mean, I work with a lot of actors and musicians and helping them really get to that place of trusting their intuition to allow themselves to be the vessel. And I am known for that, as you know, is like, I'm kind of like Hollywood's best kept secret. And that's kind of the way for all those years is teaching people how to really get into that place. If it's about writing your book, if it's about, channeling your creative abilities to the highest potential, that's how intuition serves us, is that it's not always about, seeing grandma that passed, which I love for people. And that's important too. And for any healing that has to happen in that situation, sure, it is about cold cases and we help families and missing persons, but it is actually the everyday stuff, is to be in commune to where we come from, the bigger place, the magic that we are is such a way to be happy to be lived. And I think that that's so incredible. So yeah, I can help people do that. I mean, I've done my work.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I just want to say another thing before we go. When we first met, well, it was a couple of years actually after we first met, but we were meeting and chatting and we were working together a little bit. And then I create this show, if you will. I won't mention who it's for, but it was an online video series for a high profile something. Yeah. And it was how to use metaphysical practice as wellness, as everyday wellness. And this was in 2020, maybe. I, made a sizzle or a first pilot for the company. And they were like, absolutely fucking not. Nobody's going to get it. Nobody's going to understand it. And I remember thinking like, oh, damn. Like I was so in belief of what this thing was. And I remember we spoke afterwards because you had been my guest, not my guest, but the guest for the pilot episode. And we had spoke afterwards and you were like, Jess, time doesn't exist. This actually becomes a thing. Yep. Hang on, because it's in a different format. You just don't know what it is yet. And I was like, okay. And then, the telepathy tapes happened and I was with that since 2022. And that being a conversation now that's happening at a very critical mass level is mind blowing. And the fact that you and I are now having this conversation where on this particular how-to series of Mystery School, I'm having people come in and, kind of explaining at home how we can do it, how it can better our lives. Yep. And that thing that we talked about in 2020 that I basically got fired over, here we are discussing it again.
Yes. But it's like the original OGs. The thing is that people are afraid of things they don't understand. Right.
Yes.
And so instead of, as we know at the time, especially with the younger generation, they were like, they would go to astrology or they would go to someone like me before they started getting, and I have a lot of therapist friends and I love them to death and they're clients, but they were kind of going, well, I don't know how to move in this world. I don't know how to do it. It's like, I don't want to talk about my past anymore. I want to know how to proactively be happier and, it was interesting. So I think that that's part of it. Like, I want to get in touch with part of myself. And so we saw that generation kind of move away from the traditional ways of doing things and going more into spiritual, looking for other spiritual outlets. And see, we were seeing that at that time, right? So we were just kind of before our time, but of course now it's showing up. But again, bless them. It's at the time they didn't understand it, but I can sure now they're probably like, I need to know more, right? And it was just, but now we're seeing it more. It's showing up in entertainment, showing it's like they know, we all know it. It was just more of like playing it safe. For the thing is, there was never anything to be afraid of. It was just something that was misunderstood. And that's why we're here. We're here to talk about it. We're here to share it. We're here to normalize it. And we're going to take the fear and the stigma away from it because it is normal. Intuition is normal. As the kiddos say, the hill, we used to call it the grid. We still call it the grid. We're all connected to the same place. We're all receiving all the same messages. We just have to remember how to listen, how to feel it, how to see it, how to experience it. This world is a magical place. It really is. And it's not all doom and gloom. And sure, there's a lot of things that are going on, but we can shift that energy. We can.
I love this. I love this. And I love you.
I love you too. So good. Yes.
Thank you.
This is about doing the work, doing the good work and making sure that, again, hold the light so people feel safe to find it. And I think that's what it is that we're not here. The world does not need another guru. We do not need that. What we need is to teach people how to do it for themselves. We have to show people their light and get them to brighten because that's what this is about. So we have to really hold the space for the safety of it all.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for spending time with us today. I can't wait for people to find you at tarataylor.ca, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
And intimate live gatherings. Come join us inside the Secret Society. The link is below.